Yo! Hey, welcome back to the vlog, guys. So today, I felt like it was appropriate for me to... I'm so bad at this. Alright guys, so welcome back to the vlog. So today, I want to talk about the rear end. I feel like I didn't give you guys a whole lot of detail aside from the fact that we were going to convert it to a 5-lug. And then I just kind of proceeded to start making more videos about other things. But I feel like it's necessary to talk to you guys, especially those of you who are trying to do a 5-lug conversion on a 60s style truck. I want to explain to you guys, you know, the issues that we had with dealing, the issues we had in terms.
What's wrong with you?
Trying to ball on a budget, right? Because I didn't want to go drop $700 on being able to convert this thing over to a 5-lug. That just would not have been worth it to us. I'm going to show you guys exactly what we did in order to get our 64 C10 converted over to a 5-lug in the rear end. And I'm also going to show you guys some alternatives for those of you who may have a different year model or may have a different style of truck. I hope this video can be beneficial to you guys in terms of finding a way to convert your car or truck over to a different style of bolt pattern. So let's go ahead and get into it. So today I want to discuss with you how we got our rear end converted over to a 5-lug. As the front is 5-on-5, if you watch some of the previous videos, we decided to go that route. So in order to make it matched, we needed the rear axles to be 5-on-5 also. But we had a couple of issues. So first and foremost, the 63 through 64 C10s are a different spline than all the other C10s. They are a 17 spline, which made it so difficult to try and find a type of either kit or try and pull other parts off of other trucks in order to make these axles a 5-on-5. I think it's a 63 through 82 or 83 C10s. They have interchangeable parts, okay? So like you can take, you know, axles and spider gears and things like that out of like an early 80s, 70s, late 60s model style truck and just move them over to your rear end. Well, that's not so with the 63 and 64. There is not a lot of discussion about this. I found the occasional anomaly from a forum discussing the 63 through 64 C10s in terms of the differences that they have. So they are very different. They have, like I said, they have the 17 spline axles, and so that means the spider gears are also 17 spline. So the first issue that we ran into is that we had slack, and I'll go ahead and pull up some pictures for you guys. And you would go to either move the axle or move the yoke. There was a little bit of play in it. So in order to alleviate those issues, because you could see the spider gears kind of wanting to walk around, we attempted to go find a shim. Well, generally you can find, you know, an 80 style shim or 70 style shim. It has a little bevel or it has a little lip on it in order to fit over that spider gear to center itself and work as a shim. Well, we ordered some shims in thinking they were going to fit. Well, they didn't. The 17 spline shims, they don't make those, number one. And if you do find them, I would love for someone to post in the comment section a link, because I would like to go and get one and put a shim in. And secondly, we tried to just simply take an 80 shim, cut the bevel off, stick it in behind the spider gear, but it was too thick. It locked everything up. We couldn't. We had two issues. One, we were afraid that the shim was going to walk out from behind the spider gear since there was nothing keeping it centered. And number two, I couldn't find a shim thin enough to be able to make it to where it would just, you know, there wouldn't be any slack and like it wasn't too much. But when we put a shim in there, it locked everything down and it wasn't going to work. So those are some of the issues that we ran into. What we decided to do was just simply leave the slack. It's not a substantial amount. We just wanted to, you know, tighten everything up. But we decided, well, it came from the factory like that. We'll leave it like that. I'm sure that it's, you know, there's been some wear. And I don't know if you can see in the pictures, but yeah, there was some water, I guess, that may have gotten in at some point because there is a little bit of pitting. But overall, the rear end looked nice inside. When we popped the axles out, they were 17 spline. So when we were taking the spider gears apart and when we popped the axles out, well, it's 17 spline. But I didn't think that the shims from a 30 spline or shims from a different spline would be an issue in terms of fitting into those spider gears, but it ended up being a major headache and a big problem. Interestingly enough, they actually do make a kit to convert a 6-lug 17 spline, so 63 and 64. Keep in mind the only year models of C10 that I know of that have a 17 spline, to convert that over to a 30 spline. I'll go ahead and pull that up right now. Speedway actually sells a kit for this specific instance, and that is the reason for the hefty price tag. So at $550, you can get, you know, new drums, axles, and the spider gear set you need in order to convert your 6-lug 63 through 64 C10 over to a 5-lug. The problem is, I don't have $550 to spend on just simply changing a 6-lug to a 5-lug. It almost just makes it completely not worth it to me. I would almost rather have just had a 5-lug in the front, 6-lug in the back, and called it done for the day. But in terms of just wanting to make it consistent, I made a couple calls to our local machine shops and Total Engine Service in town. They offered to do it for $175. That was by far the best option. I mean, that's significantly cheaper, almost $400, probably $400 by the time you get tax involved. That's a lot cheaper. Now, if you can find some 30 spline gears, this was an idea I was thinking of. If you can find some 30 spline gears from an 80 C10, and you can find 5-lug axles from there, or even a 70 C10, then go for it. But the other issue that you're going to have is in terms of lengths. You've got to make sure that your axles are the correct length for that rear end specifically. So like for instance, yeah, you can find a 30 spline set of spider gears and some axles, but what if the axles are 1 inch too long, or 2 inches too long, or 1 inch too short? Those are other issues you're going to run into, and those are other potential headaches. So I could have done all this work and then not even had the axles or spider gears work. So, it by far the best option for us was just to go get a machine and have them switched over to a 5-lug. But you can buy these parts individually as well, though, if you are running into a similar issue. But for those of you guys who have like a 65, 66 C10, you want to convert it over to a 5-lug, it's going to be less expensive for you. But generally speaking, I'll pull this up right here. So 65 through 69 Chevy C10. So this is another kit, but this one's just specifically from eBay, and I guess CPP is the one that offers this. And in my personal opinion, I would buy it from their eBay site, and you want to know why? No tax. That might have been feasible for us, but it's still half the price to just have them re-drilled. So if you've got a local machine shop who's willing to work with your budget and can re-drill your axles that you already have, why not just do that? So anyway, that's the direction that we decided to go on that. And another thing that we bought, we did end up buying new drums, because the drums, everything was kind of shot in the rear end, and you can see on here, Summit's got them for $68. I think we may have spent like $70 for both, and then we just bought new shoes, and we cleaned up all the parts that were already there internally. Try to get the shims that work with your rear end, and if you can't, then you may want to consider swapping out some parts internally, but it can cost you depending. Now, it may be significantly cheaper for you though. The reason that it was so expensive for us is because it was such a unique thing. The 63s and 64s were very unique compared to all the other trucks. In fact, when we would call a lot of people asking these questions, they would always just assume it was a 30 spline. It's like they'd never heard of the fact that these couple years of trucks had a different spline number than what is common in Chevy C10s between 63 and 82. So those are some of the issues that we ran into there. So another thing I didn't really touch on was what our actual gear ratios are. The gears in this specific rear end are 373s. So it was from the factory, it had a 3 on the tree, 373s, and it either had, I think, either a 283 or some type of other straight 6, because the engine mounts that we had work with the Chevy 350. That's the reason I'm assuming so. Like I said, this truck did not come with the motor, but it came with the original 3-speed, and it came with the original rear end. So off the bottom, this truck should be a beast. But in terms of MPG, probably not going to be so hot. We're not building an 800 horsepower Chevy 350. This is going to be a little bit more moderate, especially because we wanted to get decent gas mileage. We're really looking to make something that's got a lot of power from street light to street light, but we're not wanting to go overkill. Another thing is, from what I've read on forums, you can potentially shell one of these 3 speeds if you put too much power in front of it. I don't know how much truth there is of that. I honestly don't know. But later down the line, there may be some other options. I've considered going and picking up a cheap 700 R4 and just sticking it up in there. I've also read that some guys with lower horsepower use T5s, but I've also heard a lot of mixed reviews. In terms of the T5s, I've heard a lot of guys have shelled them and don't like them very much. I would love to get a T56, but those are just hard to come by without spending a lot of money. And the ultimate thing I could do if I want to drop $3,000 or $2 or $3,000 would be just to simply buy an aftermarket 5-speed that's perfect for this truck. Another very unique component to these types of trucks, there is a 3-speed out there that offers an overdrive. It has a solenoid on the side. I'll try to pop a picture up right here. These are pretty rare transmissions. I don't see them very often. I would really like to put one in my truck, and here's the reason why. From what I understand, they're just you drop it in and you go. So it would just be a direct replacement for what we have. I don't have to put a shifter on the floor. I don't have to do all these other modifications. Not that I wouldn't like a shifter on the floor. We wanted to keep this truck kind of true to its roots, in the sense that you don't see a lot of 3 on the trees anymore, but it would be great to have a 3 on the tree that also has an overdrive solenoid. So that way you can get the benefits of having good gas mileage, but as well as keeping that original 3 on the tree. But anyway, what we're going to do first off, we'll see how bad the gas mileage is. You know, if it is absolutely horrendous, we'll start considering some different options. You know, I may look for a T56 or I may look for a 700R4. I'd like to keep a standard either way though, so those are just some of the options that we have. Anyway, that about does it for us today, guys. I'm hoping to have some videos up over the next couple weeks of us either figuring out what we're doing about the gauge cluster or setting up brakes, doing that kind of thing. We also need to get the inside of the cab cleaned up and put some carpet in it, you know, that type of stuff. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys, and if you like what you see so far, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.